Welcome to the Daily Agenda. The Epping protests at the Bell Hotel. For whom the bell tolls. Probably a little bit too dramatic, I would say. But many people seem to think that this is the beginning, the catalyst of something truly epic. I don't think it is at all. Certainly not if the strategy continues in this manner. I've just been watching the live stream by Kai Stevens. I've been watching it for about 2 hours. Quite an arduous task in actual fact, really. It's always arduous watching the centre-right and their lame arguments. And of course pseudo-nationalists who, join forces with them, truthfully. But yes, it was interesting, I guess you could say, to see what some of them had to say. I mean, one of them was laughable. Some woman was interviewed by Kai Stevens, and she said, "Oh, well, you see, now in the 1990s, Governor, we all used to, black and white, we used to go to these raves together, and we were all loved up, innit?" Yes, I mean, of course, it's impossible to have a rational discussion about race, multiculturalism, the diversity delusion, and remigration with somebody who judges these matters based on hallucinogenics, and stimulants like ecstasy and MDMA. So, obviously, what more can we say about people like that? Not an awful lot, but to tell you the truth, there's an awful lot of people in the centre-right just like that, just sad old junkies from the early 1990s, in truth. And I don't intend to entertain them in any form of conversation, because it is a non-argument. There's nothing rational or intelligent there to say. It's just absolute nonsense, truly it is. But what we did see, I found very revealing, was from all the Homelanders, as they call themselves. I'm not one of them, I know what my homeland is. I don't need to pretend to be a Homelander of any description. But how they were using the net negative migration mantra of Restore Britain. It's now become en vogue. These are the same kids, because that's all they are to me, quite frankly. They're kids. And most of them are actually behaving like kids at that demo right now in Epping. And Kai Stevens included. Perhaps he'll claim that he's being slandered. Well, he's not being slandered, that's my opinion. And a slander is a false allegation. And I'm not making any false allegations against anyone. And if false allegation, Mr. Stevens, is in writing, it constitutes libel. And you're not being slandered or libelled, you're being mocked, quite frankly. Something entirely different. So as these Homelander kids claim that they're not in bed with Restore Britain, they're actually using the new lexicon of Restore Britain, whilst their leader, Kenny Smith, is lying about their involvement with Restore Britain, and in fact lying to my friends and my contacts about it as well. And I've now given them the voicemail so they can see that he's lying. And I've also sent them transcripts as well from people in the Homeland Party who admit they are involved with Restore Britain, and that half of them are unhappy about it. Well, the vast majority of nationalists are unhappy about it, quite frankly. Particularly the old school, the people Kenny Smith doesn't want. And that's a very important point. Now, a few weeks ago when I was talking to Kenny Smith, I actually said to him about the BNP docu-series that it was a good thing, because he wondered if it was a good thing to do the docu-series, because is it really the right thing to tell people how bad things were? Well, I wasn't telling people how bad things were. I was telling people the reality of it, quite frankly. Neither good nor bad, just the way it was. And so Kenny was like, well, they could be perceived in the wrong way. Not that I actually care what Kenny Smith thinks in any way, shape or form. He doesn't dictate anything to me. End of. And so I said to him, isn't it a good thing, surely, that several thousand dormant BNP activists have now been reactivated, and you could recruit them to join the Homeland Party? I don't want them, said he. I said, you don't want them? Why don't you want them? I said, who else is going to be an activist in the Homeland Party? Well, I don't want them. He says, because, they're the toxic old guard. And I said, surely, when you're talking about the toxic old guard, you mean the actual leadership? No, said he. I don't want them. I don't want them in the Homeland Party. So there you go. He doesn't want nationalists in the Homeland Party. He wants this new brand of pseudo-nationalists, because that's what they are. They don't know whether they're nationalists or centre-right, and that's the reason why they're down there in Epping with the centre-right, hobnobbing and canoodling with them and having a jolly little old time. The real purpose of tonight's video is not to lambast Kenny Smith and the Homeland Party. I'll do that later when I get all of my feedback from the meeting Kenny's attending tonight in East London, particularly when he has, well, let's see what he says about me and what I've had to say about his collusion with Restore Britain. And if he denies it, then obviously, you know, we're going to have to expand on this matter considerably, because I won't allow people to lie about me, Kenny Smith included. It's just not going to happen, okay? And that's what these pseudo-nationalists need to let sink into their tiny little heads. You will not be lying about me under any circumstances ever. And I won't lie about you. All I have to do is use your transcripts and your voice notes and the fact that you're completely in league with Restore Britain. You wish to deny it, no problem. I'll blow all of your lies out of the water easily. But in truth, the Epping protest, has it actually achieved anything? Well, the frock owl the other night, I'm reliably informed, was caused by Sniffhead Ginger Tony. You know, one of Tommy Robinson's female lieutenants. And wherever Ginger Tony is coked up, obviously there'll be trouble, because my goodness, that woman has got more balls than the vast majority of men who actually follow Tommy, and a mouth bigger than well, 20 town criers, quite frankly. Although I did find it quite amusing when she was ranting and screaming at the far left, bussed in by the bank coppers and then taken out by the bank coppers, a PR strategic stunt to wind up the so-called right-wing protesters into violence so they could nick them and plaster their monikers all over the newspapers. Old stunt, been there, seen it and done it many years ago, 35 years ago, before most of these Homelander kids were even thought of. You know, in fact, their parents were still kids then when I was active in the British National Party. So that just goes to show you how experienced I am. And I don't do demonstrations and protests, no, absolutely not. I grew out of that long ago. And that's what I'm about to tell you now with this Epping thing, you know. So, do these protests actually achieve anything? Now, the protesters will argue, we've put this in the national news. That's right, you've put that in the national news, controlled by the mainstream media and establishment agitprop and spin machine. What an achievement that is, in actual fact, isn't it? To spin it out to the masses who haven't got a clue, quite frankly, that they'll only understand it the way the media pushes it to them. So that's not an achievement either, is it? Let's be honest. There are actually, I saw them joking on the Kai Stevens live stream that there are actually more streamers there than protesters. Well, that's quite an achievement, isn't it? I mean, it's great for clickbait, you know, great for people with monetized YouTube channels there to get those money shots of it kicking off and expand their audience and their financial growth. Wonderful. But what is it actually achieving? What is it actually achieving in socio-political terms? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Call it whatever you will. Okay? So these protests, and we can't even call it a large protest, I mean, it's fairly large tonight. There's several hundred there. And lots of them are locals and people have come in from all over the country. But what is it actually achieving? So they closed down the Bell Hotel. Well, wonderful, fantastic. So they just moved the migrants somewhere else. So it's not actually achieving anything at all, is it? It's just moving them on to Desres elsewhere. So quite frankly, that is a non-achievement. But they will regard it as a great achievement because it's a public relations stunt. And I'm not really interested in public relations stunts. I'm interested in pragmatic results. And what I would say is that a far better thing to do, in truth, is to print up thousands of leaflets on remigration and get out there on the doorsteps, knock on the doors and talk to the people and to try and counteract the mainstream media propaganda that's being shot out at them every single day and night of the week. That is far better than having a demonstration which benefits the mainstream media and also the streamers. I mean, if you actually look at what's happening tonight in Epping, well, you can see all of Tommy Robinson's streamers, the usual litany of hangers-on and parasites, quite frankly. streaming. So what's new? There's nothing new, is there? At all, in any way, shape or form. But I do know there's a meeting happening tonight in East London, which I think is actually more important than what's happening in Epping. And obviously it'll be interesting to get the feedback from that. Because I think many of the people there are very serious activists. And what they want is a complete change of strategy, not these incessant, endless demos and protests, which are great for clickbait. But that's all they are. They're not actually achieving anything. You know, there needs to be a complete change of strategy. And the strategy needs to be changed both online, in social media context, and also by getting these stacks of leaflets and activists, people equipped with the knowledge and the ability to explain the remigration policy in a credible and intelligent manner, on the doorsteps, talking to people and holding community activities. That is far more productive, I would say, than having a demo of this nature, which just feeds into the clickbait crowd. And you may hear thunder in the background. Yes, that's absolutely right. There's a thunderstorm rolling in from the southwest, which is entirely consistent with what's happening in this country, isn't it? A storm rising. And in truth, if these demonstrations do continue, it will spiral out of control into multiple demonstrations, and then maybe we'll be in the Professor Betts scenario that he's outlined many times. And I've discussed that with him. I'm not going to go into that any further in this particular video because that's not the true purpose of it. We'll do that another time because the Professor Betts issue does need to be discussed at some length. And I have actually discussed his dire warnings and predictions. And so, absolutely, the thunderstorm is rolling in. And it's the same really with the immigration issue and remigration, and talking about, you know, net negative or net zero or zero net. These are just centre-right spins. That's all it is. It's just centre-right spin. You know, so Reform UK has net zero, zero net. So what? So what? It's still replacement migration. And then they're talking about net negative, which all the Homelanders have adopted because they're too clueless to stick to nationalism, quite frankly. They have to adopt the lexicon and mantras of the centre-right. And this is what I said to you, the Homeland Party is not a nationalist organisation anymore. It may well have started off of that, but it's veered so far to the left into the centre-right, it is now truly a centre-right flag group. Okay, let's make that perfectly clear. And I've spoken to a number of nationalists, people who used to run nationalist organisations and large branches, and none of them take the Homeland Party serious as a nationalist organisation. So we need to have a change of strategy, quite frankly. Unless, of course, you want to go along for the entertainment with the likes of Ginger Tony Collins, sniffing some coke and ranting at the far left. But that's interesting because Ginger Tony actually rants the same abuse at nationalists as she does at Antifa, because she's an extremely confused little individual, that one. And she actually refers to me politely, goodness knows what else she says, not that I actually care, she'd be quite entertaining, as the top-ranking BNP member. Oh, well, so what? She seems to think that being a top-ranking member of the BNP is worse than being in Antifa. But one thing I will say to you about the Epping protest, I think the most valuable thing that came out of it, in truth, was the sight of the bent coppers shipping in the far left in their own vans and then shipping them out, including Antifa, because in truth the bent coppers are Antifa. They've got exactly the same mindset. They're brainwashed by the same people. Common purpose. Leadership courses, they call them, don't they? Leadership courses. Communist purpose, formerly Marxism today. So that's the only useful thing that came out of it, quite frankly. And also the fact that they're prepared to ram people with vans and kill them. Well, that's nothing new. That's nothing new whatsoever. You know, and when it comes to the big kickoff, which is coming, you're going to see an awful lot more of that, and the backlash it's going to spark off. Well, yes, oh dear. That's something we'll discuss in the video about Professor Betts later. But right now, take this from the Epping protest. There needs to be a dynamic change of strategy, and it needs to be done quickly, because this way of doing things is going nowhere, and it's been going nowhere for decades, and I'm not getting involved in it because it's a complete waste of my time, energy, experience and skill set. But if you want to waste your time on it, no problem at all. You'll just have to learn the hard way, won't you? Particularly if you're involved with the fake nationalists and the Homeland Party.